Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In today's tutorial, we're going to look at seeing what it takes to convert a JavaScript script into a C# script. We're going to go through each line, just line by line, and then we'll make a few other modifications to make it a little bit better. So let's get started. Let's see here where we have the JavaScript opened in Visual Studio. I'm just using Visual Studio to make it easier to help me do the formatting and whatnot. This all can be done in Notepad as well. So let's take a look at it and get started. So here's the JavaScript that we're going to convert. First thing I'm going to do is just add a new comment up here. Converted to C# and the date that I'm doing the conversion. For JavaScript, we always use the import statement. For C#, we always use the using statement, so we have to change all of these. Older versions of Vegas required the word Sony here. The newer versions of Vegas, 14 and newer, require script portal. Now before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and do a file, save as on this file, and we're going to change this extension to CS. By changing the extension to CS, notice that our red underlines up in this area went away. And now we can finish with what we need to add to this script. For a C# script, we have to have an entry point and a from Vegas routine. So let's go ahead and add that first. So now we have all of this stuff that we've always started every one of our scripts with. Now we have two opening brackets here. Let's go to the bottom and add our two closing brackets to match. And you will see that now all of our indentions have been done automatically for us to match those brackets. The next line here is a variable. With C# we have to tell it what type of variable it is. We don't just use var. So we're going to take this, get rid of var, and this is a timecode variable as it's a new timecode. So that one is really easy to figure out. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to get rid of this try, and we also need to come down to the bottom and get rid of the catch, because this is a fairly easy program, so we really don't need those in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and back this up so that the formatting is correct. Next, we have an enumerator is being created. In this case, we're going to have to change the variable to Enumerator. And then that will be our track enum variable. And then we will set this, explicitly change this to an Enumerator type. And we are going to get that from myvegas.project.tracks.get enumerator. Now, enumerator will not work because we do not have a using up here that includes the enumerator. So we're going to come up here and add a new using system.collections. Collections includes the enumerator interface so that we can get that correct when we need to run it. Our next line, while not at the end. That's not going to work with the new enumerator. So let's get rid of the not, and we're going to do while track enum but move next. If there is a next one to move to, that will return true. If there is not a next one to move to, that will return false, and we'll know we're finished. So our next line, we're going to get a track. So let's change var to track. And the variable name is track. And so we will get rid of that there. And then we're going to force it to be a track. So we'll put parentheses around the word track. And then we're going to look at the current track enum. So we change this to current. Now we're going to have to do the same thing here. So instead of a variable, this is going to be Enumerator. And then we will change this to be of type enumerator. And we're going to get the enumeration from track.events.getNumerator. Then the same thing on this next line. Get rid of the not, change add end to move next. Now we'll need to change this variable. It is a track event because it says so right here. I'll get rid of that. We're going to force it to be a track event, so we'll put parentheses around this. And then we're going to look at the event enum, and we're going to look at current once again. So now we've got the current. Alright, this next line. If event selected, we don't need to change that one. This one, it's a variable. What type of variable is it? Well, event.start is a time code. Trim amount is a time code. So this one's going to be a time code. Alright, the next one. Get rid of the var. What type is this? Event.length is a time code. So we're going to put time code again. We'll come on down. We have TKE equals event.activeTake. An active take is a take. So the type is take. The next one is a take offset. Offset is a time code. So make that a time code. The next line. TKE offset equals TKE offset plus term amount. Nothing to change there. Event.start equals dstart. Nothing to change there. Our TKE dot offset equals TKE offset. Nothing to change there. dlength equals dlength minus term amount. Nothing to change there. Then we have event.length equals dlength. Well, dlength is already a time code, so we don't need to say new time code here. Then in the old version, we had, at the end, we had to move next to the next one. Well, our move next is now up here, so we do not need this event enum.move next. Once again, we do not need this track enum.move next. So we'll just get rid of that, and then we'll scoot that over. So that looks good. Let's give it a quick save and take a look at Vegas. You'll notice here on the timeline I have several events that are selected and several events that are not. All the ones that are selected should be trimmed. So let's run this script and find out. So we're going to pick the CS version. And we got an error message. It says line 32, namespace enumerator. So let's go back and look over here. We'll look on line 32, enumerator. We did not put an I in front of this one. So let's add the I, save it again, and now let's try to run it again. And this time all the ones that were selected were trimmed. Now let's undo this and go back to our script. Now let's make the second change. That's going to make this a whole lot easier to edit in the future and to read right now. So instead of doing all this enumerator business, let's do a for each instead. So for each, we're looking at a track, and the variable name is track in myvegas.project.tracks. And then we do not need to set the track because the for each will set the track for us. So now we're going to do the same thing on the events. For each track event in track.events. And then once again, we do not need this line. And it will make everything a whole lot easier to read in the future. And we don't have to worry about all this enumeration stuff. Because we don't have to worry about the enumeration stuff, we can also get rid of this using system.collections because we no longer need it. So let's take this, file it, save it as the same file name except we're going to put a 2 behind it. Now let's go over to Vegas, Tools, Scripting, Run Script, and pick number 2. And we'll see that it does the exact same thing. Overall, it's a fairly easy process to convert from JavaScript to C#, as we have seen in this tutorial. There are some difficulties that might need to be changed, such as we changed the enumerator business over to a foreach, but other than that, it's a fairly straightforward process. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.